before Sophia became an officer desperately chasing criminals. Sophia was just a girl who once had a family. Life had been good then. Their parents worked hard but always came home smiling. The four of them shared meals, laughter, and stories. Sophia looked after her little sister Seline with the seriousness of someone far older than 10. At 5, Seline was small, shy, and always at Sophia's side. Everything ended one rainy night. On their way back from a burial, the car spun off the road. By the time help arrived, both parents were gone. The orphanage became their new world. It was cold, crowded, and full of children who cried themselves to sleep. Food was never enough, and comfort was rare. Sophia tried to shield Seline from the harshness of it. She saved scraps for her, brushed her hair with her hands, and told her that as long as they were together, they would be fine. To seal that promise, Sophia made 2 bracelets from bits of string and thread she found in the yard. They were rough, but they were theirs. One for Seline, one for Sophia. Whenever Seline grew scared, Sophia reminded her to look at the bracelet and remember they still had each other. But promises couldn't stop what came next. A family arrived one day looking to adopt. Their smiles lingered on Seline. They called her sweet, gentle, perfect. They barely looked at Sophia. She was too old, already 10, and families wanted children they could shape from the beginning. Sophia begged them not to separate her from Seline, but her words meant nothing. Seline was taken, her small hand slipping from Sophia's grasp. The bracelets no longer touched. The sound of the orphanage door closing was louder than any scream. Sophia was left behind, clutching her own bracelet as if it could fill the space her sister left behind. She stayed in that orphanage until she turned 18. By then, no one wanted her. She aged out with no family waiting, no money, no guidance. The world outside was hard. She worked low jobs, struggled for food, and fought to keep a roof over her head. But through it all, she never forgot Seline. The promise she made in the orphanage never left her. One day she would find her sister, and they would be together again. Her determination carried her forward. She pushed herself to build a life strong enough to keep that promise. She chose the police force, at first for survival, but soon it became more. She discovered a purpose in chasing criminals, in fighting the kind of darkness that had broken her own family. Her name grew inside the department. She was relentless, disciplined, unshaken by fear. But beneath the uniform, she still carried the memory of a small girl and a frayed bracelet. Then came the name that would change everything: Raven. At first, it was just another file on her desk, a string of killings carried out with precision. No mistakes, no clear motive. The figure behind it remained faceless. The only trace left behind was a single black feather at each scene, as if to mock those who tried to follow. The press called this phantom Raven, and the name stuck. Raven was clever, skilled, untouchable. Each escape left the police more frustrated, but Sophia's resolve only deepened. To her, Raven was not just another criminal. Raven was the test of everything she had built herself to be. And so, standing over another crime scene with a black feather left on the floor, Sophia made her vow. She would not stop, she would not bend, she would not rest until Raven was in her hands. Sophia pulled the trigger and Raven dropped lifeless to the ground. The moment felt unreal. She stepped closer, her breath ragged, her hands trembling. She reached down to pull the mask away. And then Sophia jolted upright in bed, sweat damp on her skin. Her pulse raced as if she had truly fired the shot. It had only been a dream, one she had lived through too many times. Even in her sleep, Raven owned her thoughts. She stared at the ceiling, forcing her breathing to slow. The hunt never left her, not when she walked, not when she rested. Raven was more than a case. Raven was an obsession. At headquarters, the briefing room was filled with tired faces. Another victim, another man dead in his own home. The mark of Raven left behind, a single black feather resting on the polished floor. But this killing, like the others, wasn't random. Each victim was someone of power, influence, or wealth. Politicians, judges, businessmen. All of them carried histories that were more shadow than light. One by one, the pieces began to connect. The victims were not strangers to each other. They had crossed paths in deals that never reached the public eye. Decisions whispered in closed rooms. It was as though someone had made a list and Raven was moving through it, striking down names with deadly precision. Theories grew. Some believed Raven was working alone, others that someone powerful had hired the assassin to silence old partners. No matter the motive, the killings were cold, methodical, and always a step ahead of law enforcement. Sophia studied every detail she could. She memorized patterns, replayed footage, compared files until her eyes blurred. Raven was clever, yes, but Raven was still human. Humans made mistakes. Sophia only needed one. That night, an informant tipped them off. Another target was marked. A wealthy developer, known for his connections in politics. The team moved fast, surrounding the building, but Raven was already there. Raven moved through the hall with speed, one step ahead as always. Sophia's blood surged as she followed through the stairwell. Her boots hit the steps hard, her gun steady in her hand. She heard the door slam open above her. She ran faster. By the time she reached the rooftop, the night air was sharp against her skin. Raven stood near the edge, tall, lean, the mask hiding every feature. For a breath, they faced each other. Sophia raised her weapon, but Raven moved first, swift as if the whole scene had already been rehearsed. A flash of motion knocked her arm aside, the gun clattering against the floor. They clashed in silence, neither speaking, the struggle fast and raw. Raven was strong, but not reckless. Every move was precise, controlled. Sophia blocked, struck, missed, and pressed forward with everything she had. For one moment, she managed to seize Raven's wrist. The grip was hard, desperate. She felt the fabric of a bracelet beneath her fingers. Before she could hold tighter, Raven twisted free, delivering a sharp strike that forced her back. The assassin leapt for the edge, vanishing into the night like a shadow dissolving into darkness. Sophia stumbled forward, her chest heaving. Something was in her hand. She opened her fist. A bracelet lay there, worn and frayed, strands of thread pulled loose with age. Her throat tightened. It was impossible, but the truth stared back at her. It was the same kind of bracelet she wore beneath her sleeve, the one she had tied in the orphanage years ago, promising her sister they would never be apart. The rooftop was empty now. The city light stretched endless in the distance, the night wind cold against her face. She stood alone, the bracelet pressed into her palm. For years, it had been her only proof of a bond she had once sworn never to break. Now it was proof of something else, something she could not yet understand, but something that would change everything. Sophia refused to accept that the wanted assassin could be her sister. Sophia stood on the rooftop long after Raven had disappeared. The bracelet in her hand was worn and frayed, the threads rough against her skin. It was identical to the one she had carried for 20 years. She could not deny what it meant, yet her mind refused to accept it. Raven could not be her sister. That thought carried too much weight, too much pain. She pressed the bracelet into her palm until it hurt, as though pain would make the truth disappear. In the days that followed, she walked in silence. She kept the bracelet hidden, never reporting it, never mentioning it to her team. She sifted through orphanage records, adoption papers, anything that could give her answers. There it was, buried in old files. Celine's adoption at 5 years old by a couple who had left little trace behind. They had given no interviews, had no neighbors, no history. Their names were false. Which was why she couldn't find her sister for so many years. It was as if they had appeared for that one purpose only, to take a child away and vanish. At the same time, the killings grew bolder. Another man was dead, and the pattern became sharper. Every victim belonged to a chain of power. Politicians who had profited from silence, businessmen who had traded favors in smoke-filled rooms, judges who had twisted justice for gain. The police closed in. Surveillance informants, traps every lead pulled tighter. For the first time, word reached them of a planned meeting between Raven and her handlers. Sophia moved quietly, not sharing everything she knew, because her instincts told her this was different. She needed to see Raven again to prove the bracelet wrong or right. The meeting took place in an abandoned warehouse on the edge of the city. The air was heavy with dust, the windows broken, the ground scattered with debris. She tracked the shadow moving between the beams of light. Raven was there, masked, prepared for another escape. The confrontation was sharp and brutal. Sophia pressed forward with all the strength of years of training, her body driven by both duty and something deeper she did not dare name. Raven countered with precision born of long discipline. Every strike carried skill, every movement the mark of someone who had been shaped into a weapon since childhood. In the final surge, Raven forced her back, the blade angled at Sophia's throat. For a moment, everything stilled. The assassin had the chance to end it. But the strike never came. Instead, Raven's body trembled, the weapon slipping from her grasp. She staggered, then dropped to her knees, the weight of something far heavier than the fight pressing her down. Her hands rose to her face. Slowly, deliberately, she pulled the mask away. Beneath it was not the faceless killer Sophia had haunted, but the sister she had lost. The same eyes she remembered from childhood, now hardened by years of pain. The same scar on her brow from a fall in the orphanage playground. Seline stared up at her, tears breaking through the steel that had carried her this far, her chest heaving with sobs. The mask lay on the ground between them, empty, lifeless. In that moment, Raven was gone. What remained was only Seline. Sophia wanted to believe she had seen wrong, but the bracelet gave her no escape. Seline won it still, faded but unbroken. They had made them together, a promise of forever, and Seline had never let hers go. Seline had not been adopted into a home. She had been taken into a system built on brutality. The couple who claimed her were only a mask for something darker. Behind them stood an organization that stole children and remade them into weapons. From the moment she entered their house, her childhood was over. She was trained to obey, trained to fight, trained to kill. The organization did not kill for ideals, they sold death. Politicians who wanted rivals removed, businessmen who wanted competition erased, men who wanted their enemies gone, all came to them. The assassins were tools for hire, never told why their targets had to die. Orders were all that mattered. Those who disobeyed or tried to escape were executed as examples. Seline survived by obeying. Every mission was another chain fastened around her life. She killed not because she chose to, but because choice had been taken from her long ago. The moment of recognition between them did not last. A gunshot cracked through the air, sparking against the concrete. It came from neither police nor Sophia's team, but from one of the hitmen of the organization. They had found their way here. The bullets missed, but it was enough to scatter the moment. Seline fled. The instinct drilled into her, stronger than anything else. Sophia shielded herself and returned fire. By the time the police closed in, Seline was gone. Now the chase was over in a different way. The police had discovered what Sophia already knew. Raven was a woman, and her capture was close. Units tightened the net, press swarmed, and higher officers demanded answers. But Sophia could not let them have her. The police wasn't the only problem. The organization would find her even in chains. They would silence her as they had silenced countless others whose identity were discovered. Sophia made her choice. She would not lose her sister again. The plan was dangerous and fragile. Sophia spread the word that Raven planned to leave the country on a cargo ship loaded with containers. Police and the organization moved in and raided that ship. In the chaos, Raven was seen jumping into the dark water. On the deck, a bloodied bracelet, trails of blood and a torn scrap were left behind, enough for anyone watching to believe she had died. Nobody came up. In truth, the current carried Seline away from that ship toward a small launch waiting out of sight, where a paid smuggler pulled her aboard and took her quietly out to sea. Her name was erased, her trail wiped clean. She vanished not as Raven, not even as Seline, but as someone new, someone no one could trace. Sophia stood alone when it was over. The world believed Raven was gone. The organization would search for a time, then shift its eyes elsewhere. Only Sophia knew the truth. She had kept her promise, late but unbroken. She had found her sister, and this time she had not let go. In the silence of her apartment, Sophia placed the two bracelets side by side on the table. One was hers, one was the fragment she had torn from Raven's wrist. Both were worn, both carried the years between them. They were proof of loss and proof of survival. The hunt was finished, but the bond remained. One day they will meet again.